Hello, greetings, this is Gilles Mention. I wanted to come and say hello, to prepare those videos, so if I don't have time, I will be able to have a video to post since I do have the time. So I put a tie on to speak about my friend Epicure. First, I want to say that I'm kind of new to this older philosophers. For this is something I discovered, but I find great passion and interest for those old philosophers. And my biggest passion is for the pre-Socratic philosopher, those from the 6th and 5th century BC, from like Buddha, Confucius, Lao Tzu in the East, and from in the West, like Thales, Anaxagore, Anaximed, Pythagore, Empédocle, Heraclite, Democrite, Zénon d'Élée. There was like 10 major, and those philosophers have incredible science, whether it's in the East or West, that we have not yet grasped on. Otherwise, we would have find the wisdom and solve all our problems of the world. We would have moved on to this paradise reality if we had discovered both from the East and West the secret of those philosophers. Then come Plato and Socrates. So Plato is it's like the beginning of the official philosopher. I adore Plato. So it was a great revelation in my life when I discovered Plato, who's teaching Socratic thought. I still exist up there. For once we open ourselves to the astral plane, we know those beings already exist. They still exist there. They still are teaching people in relation to what they've been talking when they were. If we had an incarnation where we had a powerful influence on the world, we maintain that form in order to continue to teach in that form. As soul ascend into those higher planes, those fourth dimensional higher planes, there is this reflection. And so many philosophers come to see me very often, since I have this receptivity and knowledge of their reality up there in the higher planes. I sometimes meet Plato, where I teach the Socrates thought, or sometimes I meet Spinoza or Kant, or those people are listening to all those. They're still like interested in what's going on down here, and many other people, artists and philosophers and scientists, they all are up there and they're all listening. They're all part of this great love that is the one. And so for today, I wanted to, then after Plato comes Aristotle. Aristotle kind of flattened everything out. That's why it became like kind of scientifically, it wasn't a really good scientific, but he was a good philosopher. He tried to make philosophy practical. And so that's what we kind of created this organization of the realm of science. And although he wasn't a good philosopher, a good scientist himself, he was very practical in what he taught, and so for ages he was very important, and he still is in many sense. But after he disappeared, there was like a real void. There was nothing, like everything that was the mystical understanding of Plato had disappeared with Aristotle, and so there was got a void until the 3rd century BC when Epicure came into being. And there was another school, there was an opposing school, there was a Stoic, another Zenon that was here. And in a sense, I'm the difference between those two schools, I'm more a Stoic than Epicurean, because the Stoic didn't believe in God. They said if the gods exist, they have nothing to do with the human life, and so we don't need to have cult into them or ask them anything. We just live our life as humans. When the Stoics said, no, we do want divine providence, we want to call on the God to become part of our life. And so, of course, all those divinity of the Greek pantheon, I work with them. They are friends and guides, but I believe in the one God that is all, is the most powerful, and I do want this one God to intervene in my life each and every day. So I'm much more Stoic in that sense than Epicurean, but yet Epicure is becoming a much more important part of my life. For there is certain things one thing that he really thought that was very important is that happiness was the highest function of human life. Happiness, for Plato, thought that vice can lead us to pleasure, but happiness can only be gained through virtue. And so it is a fact that if we don't have any virtue, there is very little chance we'll find happiness. We'll find short-term pleasure, but happiness is something lasting. And Epicure saw that happiness was the greatest aspiration for man, and what in many sense what more can we want? Once we are happy, we discover this happiness, this lasting happiness, there is nothing better than we can ask for. Another thing that he thought was that friendship was the highest social value. And for me, friendship is very important. I value my friends. Even if they're not around me, I do value them. And so even if they're dead, I still value them. For we all still exist up there. When death does not exist. Epicure thought that death could not exist neither for the dead nor the living, because when you're alive, you're not dead, and so death does not exist. And when you're dead, death does not exist because you're no longer here. So he couldn't believe it. He understood that death did not really exist. I forgot to say that in the French video, but it's one of his philosophy. And in essence, he wrote 300 books. 300 books. The philosophers of his time commented on those 300 books he wrote, but none of them survived. So I'm hoping one day to go into to be able to discover some treasures where I'll be able to discover some precious manuscript that's like survive hidden from man during all those times. There was all kinds of treasure that been hidden at the time of in the old days, and so archaeology will be an interest of mine. So what we know is that those books have not survived. At the time there was no printing press, and there was no bestsellers. When you wanted to have many copies, you had somebody that had to write down your whole book, and then so it wasn't that many books around. But it was only for the people that were kind of rich that could have the books. But he wrote 3 letters, and those 3 letters explain his philosophies and how most of his philosophy mainly. And so those 3 letters are very precious, because it's 3 letters that he wrote that were saved through time. And in a sense, one of his ideas was that in order to be happy, you have to be hidden. To hide yourself from society. The more hidden you are, the happier you will be. And in many sense, it is true. It's very French. Also, French people are very Epicurean in that sense. For me, I'm using those very private things of my spiritual life to share here publicly on the internet, because it serves my purpose in assisting the community in comforting themselves, in discovering their own spirituality, and something I am allowed to do that. But I will never share things about my personal life, like my business or my sentimental life. Those are private things, and those things need to remain private. For we have the right of privacy. It's in the human rights. There is in the Charter of you. Although the internet companies do overpass that. They say, well, no, you're a product. We don't care about your private life. We'll use all you become our product. But we forgive them for that. It is no big deal. But in a sense, so in a sense, he saw that, and he was living in this garden. He had bought this garden in Greece, in Athens, and he was living there. He was growing his food there, and he was receiving people in nature. And that is really was something I'm really looking forward to, have a garden where I can receive people in the garden, and. But then he thought also he was a no excess. He was also a philosopher that thought that excess was really, he was only eating 1 meal a week. And the rest of the time he was just eating bread, drinking wine and water. And he didn't really work out. So he was often sick, so he was lying down, and people thought he was lazy. And since he was living hidden, like people, he had a lot of critics and opposition during his time. But in a sense, he realized that when he received his friend and drank too much wine, he had big headaches the next day. So he was like, and it's all about moderation. And that's very important, to be moderate, not to be excessive, even in virtue. If you're too excessive, even in virtue, it becomes a vice. So it's about keeping things in balance. So Epicure is very important. He's a good friend of mine. I thought I talked to him. I even put a tie on to speak about him today. And so it is. So I want to say that I'm going to be becoming more and more Epicurean. I thought I talk about Epicure for this short video. I make a few videos in advance, so if I don't have time to make them, I have something to post in this month of March. I'm going to pull a few cards and finish with a song. The painting behind me is an astrological self-portrait. But it's kind of nice, it kind of works, but I'm thinking about going back into, although it's really, really nice as a whole, all the words, when you look at it up close, they're kind of blurry. And I don't know if I should keep them blurry, because they all are blurry and they all work together, so I might keep it like that, or I may go back into each and every one of them, but it will completely change the nature of the painting. So I might just, I'm going to be patient with that and leave it for like a month before I even think about doing something in it. And I forgot to comment on that, so I left it here to comment on it on this video. The highest wisdom for us is resources. We have all kinds of resources that are available in the invisible world. First, abundance, money, but friends, potential, all kinds of things. The angels are resources, the guides are resources. There is all kinds of resources. We want to create this, we want to focus on our resources. We want to be abundant and in this ability to receive and share those resources with the world, and to to take care of our own physical well-being. It's kind of important to be focused on that. What we need to understand is the karma, is what is preventing us from finding this freedom. We have to apply love and to forgive ourselves, to forgive others. This is how we transcend karma, is unconditional love will overcome karma. For all this past life memory, this subconscious memory will continue to haunt us and come back and put pressure on us until we get into acceptance. And we ask the angels to assist us if needed. For the angels cannot help, or the guides or the masters cannot assist if you do not ask them. They do not have the right to do that. But if you ask them to assist, they will ask you whenever you have a difficult, problematic situation. Ask a guide or a spirit or a master or an angel, an archangel, whoever you're comfortable with, to assist you with that, and you will see he will be able to intervene within the cosmic law. And so it is about understanding our own karma. Our karma is, what is karma? It's just a word, like it says in Matrix. What is love? It's just a word, but it's the connection that's behind it, what it means. And in this movie, that's a philosophical movie, The Matrix, it explained that we have to be grateful for our karma. Our karma is part of who we are, and so there is good karma as well. It's not just bad karma, it is all part of one. And so we integrate, we balance out our karma, and we find the freedom. What we need to do is to create, to be creative. Swords are very creative. A good sword can create, we can create, God has created galaxy with a sword, and so we're not asked to create galaxies, but there's all kinds of situations we can create, and possibilities, and liberation and healing with such just simple swords that make us feel good. And so to always go with the feeling side of life. And the outcome will be surrender. It means letting go of all those things that have been holding us back, and it's surrendering to the present moment, to your God self, to allow your soul to become to discipline. It's a matter of also disciplining our physical senses and body in order to align, to teach them wisdom day after day, not to be too severe. As a good father, the soul has to be understanding that those senses they're like children to the soul, and so they have to be disciplined, but little by little, we accept to integrate all those aspects, and so everything flows. I hope this message was interesting for you. I'm going to finish with a song. It's a gospel song. They used to be sung in the Civil War in America, but so it's not. But I'm not going to sing it in the spirit of war. It's more in the spirit of truth, in the spirit of peace, where the truth is marching on. It goes like this. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vantage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has lost the faithful lighting of his terrible sweet sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make man holy, let us live to make man free, as truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Well, thank you very much. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. Salat.